Welcome to Healing Minds, Stories of Resiliency and Recovery, a conversation held at the intersection of substance abuse, mental health, and everyday living. Your hosts, Marc and Justin Wolf, bring both professional expertise and personal understanding to the table. So welcome to the conversation. Let's dive in.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Healing Minds, Stories of Resiliency and Recovery. I'm your host, Justin Wolf, joined by always my co-host, Marc Regala. Marc, how you doing today, big guy?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Doing great, man. Doing great. Glad to see you are rocking the Suffer to Tougher t-shirt there.
Always.
It's a nice emblem. Always.
Always. That's my whole wardrobe now, Justin. I got 30 of them, one for each day of the month.
Fantastic. And then they are all black, your color.
All black.
And they're all medium.
All medium, yep.
Perfect.
Try to squeeze into a small here by the end of the summer to show my cuts.
That's the goal. That is the goal. or kids large, your choice.
There you go. There you go.
Oh, no. But as we're kind of moving into the summer, I thought, hey, what better time than to kind of start diving into just talking about those situations that kind of come with it, right? The holiday season, July 4th, warmer weather, people are vacationing or taking time off from work. They got a lot more unstructured time available, and it's nicer outside.
Mm-hmm.
And so those things can kind of pose a risk when somebody's been working hard on their program and doing things to attend to their mental health when, hey, it's the 4th of July. It's nice outside and everybody's gathering at the local pool and everybody's bringing their giant coolers filled with beer or whatever alcoholic beverages that they enjoy. So, no, I think this is your spot, man.
Well, no, it's very easy to get distracted. That's for sure. You have invites to barbecues. You have some plans, maybe in the evenings because it's not getting dark out to, 9 o'clock at night or a little after 9 o'clock at night. You're getting invites in 100 different places, to go meet up with friends or family or whatever it might be. It's just a busy time of the year. We don't get a lot of nice weather here in the Chicagoland area. It seems like we get a few months out of the year to be able to enjoy it. Everybody wants to enjoy it. But the issue is if you get distracted and you get complacent, that's where you're susceptible to a potential situation. And if we're talking on the drug or alcohol side, a potential relapse. So, we did have Memorial Day weekend, about a month and a half ago. 6 weeks ago, whatever it was, and quite frankly, the phone, whether it was Facebook Messenger or my personal phone, was ringing off the hook. Because people let their guard down, they put themselves in vulnerable positions or vulnerable situations by going to certain events or what have you, and people, there was a high susceptibility of relapse. There was a lot of people that had a slip up that weekend. So, I had suggested this to you. You thought it was a good topic. Yeah. I think it is too, because things are not going to get any slower. They're going to get busier, July 4th here being a few days away, and then they got, just the barbecues and stuff like that, all the way basically until Labor Day or a little bit past Labor Day. So I think we just kind of want to reel everybody in and get them focused and understand that, complacency is dangerous. It's very easy to miss your support group on a Tuesday night. It's very easy to miss your AA meeting on a Saturday morning or what have you, or Monday night. But the issue is, and we've talked about this so many times, you have to put your sobriety and recovery first at all times. And if that means missing an event because you have to attend a meeting, okay, and stay the course, then that's what it needs to be. Because most people that I talk to don't want to go backwards. I certainly don't want to go backwards, but to prevent yourself from going backwards, you got to keep going forwards, and you got to keep going forwards on a daily basis.
Yeah, no, and I think you're absolutely correct, because it's like you talk about a lot of these situations that people can kind of find themselves in. And I've been talking with like a lot of young men, like young adult men. Like that's who I tend to usually see like in therapy and counseling and just kind of connect with, right? And so one of the biggest things that are kind of going on right now, especially starting to get nicer, is you look at baseball season. and Wrigley Field and going down to the city. And a lot of people like just have historically like growing up in this area, that's been just a part of their lifestyle. It's just kind of what they do. We go to the games, we hang out, and whatever happens, happens. And so what's been a big challenge is that I'm working with a lot of these guys who are in their early 20s, and this is a huge stressor, right? I'm seeing like this is just part of what my family has always done. This is part of what my friends have done. We're all back from school. We have our annual guys trip down to the park, and then we go out and we just kind of, we come home when we come home. We walk across the street.
Yep.
And so a lot of people have really had to catch themselves and recognize that, hey, a lot of these situations that really put me at risk, because it's not just so much the risk of just the drinking and the return to use, right? It's the risk of, hey, if I fall back into this, like I know what my mind is going to be telling me the next day when I wake up. I am going to be beating myself crazy over the choice I made and that decision that I made because I let my guard down. Because if I play that tape all the way out, I know it doesn't just stop with us just going to the game, watching the game, and then all of us going home. It's we're going to go down there, and then I know my friends are going to want to get after it, and I'm going to be in that moment, and I'm just going to go with it because that's what I've always done. And so really having to take that personal inventory and really be honest with yourself about what position does this really place me in here? Like, this is Chicago. I mean, this is what people do in the summer. They go down to the city. So having to let go of that and choose not to engage in that is a really difficult choice that people are making to put themselves and their own well-being first. And so like I've been just watching that happening left and right here, especially when you actually have a viable baseball team in the Cubs this year. I know it drives you crazy. I'm a Cardinals fan, so believe me, I don't like saying it either, man.
Here's the deal on that, Justin.
Oh, break it down, Mark.
I'm coming up on 5 years clean and sober off of alcohol and mind-altering substances. July 17th. Okay, it'll be five full years of nothing. Okay, I'm pretty rock solid with my recovery. I'm at the gym. I'm eating clean. I go to AA personally. I help facilitate support groups. I mean, I am all in. I have been invited to a couple Cubs games this year. I respectfully turned them down because I didn't want to be in that environment. I have been invited to a couple of White Sox games this year. I respectfully turned them down because I know there's going to be a tailgate and beanbags and drinking and barbecue, and I just don't want to be in that environment. I've been to a handful of baseball games since I've gotten sober, and the people that I've attended those games to either have a similar lifestyle to me, or I went like with, a friend and their child that I knew my friend wasn't going to be drinking or tying one on or what have you. I'm very, very selective as far as what I do and putting myself in certain situations. Now, I love baseball. I love sporting events. I mean, I loved hockey games, Bears games, White Sox games. I mean, you name it back in the day, Bulls games, okay? But at the same time, it's like, I just don't want to be around that type of crowd. I know what it's going to entail. I'm not necessarily worried about me drinking or going backwards at this particular stage in the game. I was early on, but now it's to the point where it just becomes agitating to me. Okay. And honestly, it gives me anxiety seeing people act the way they act and seeing alcohol take over their actions and the words that come out of their mouth. And just, I'm at the point right now where it just kind of disgusts me. So I'd rather choose not to be around those people, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's like, hey, like if I'm living a completely different lifestyle, why would I choose to be in a situation that kind of contradicts that?
Yeah.
And
It's just me, I mean, that's just how I feel. But like I said, I mean, early on, yeah, I mean, I didn't want to be in that particular situation because of fears of temptation of drinking or whatever it might be. Now it's just I just don't want anything to do with that type of environment to be around that. I want to be around people that are going to support my future, not my past.
mm-hmm.
And I can't stress that enough. And that's what people need to take out of this video. Now, that being said, I mean, I got a group of buddies now that are sober, and I'm sure we'll probably venture to a ball game, probably later on in the year. But again, it's a controlled crowd that's around me. And honestly, I'm going to be selective with where I'm going to be sitting at too. I'm not going to be
Yeah.
sitting in the outfield, whether it's the bleachers at Wrigley Field or the outfield at White Sox Park. I'm probably going to be sitting more in an area that's going to be more prone to like a family environment. I'm even selective when it comes to that. I mean, everything is recovery focused, sobriety focused, and I guess what I can and cannot tolerate from an anxiety level, or
Yeah.
getting agitated. Just don't like being around people that are tying one on and drinking.
Right. Well, I mean, you're kind of highlighting the fact that, hey, there's factors in these decisions that can be made that really look out to support you and the direction in which you're trying to head, as opposed to being, knee jerk reaction, not so thoughtful or intentional with your choices, and just kind of choosing, hey, bleachers are the cheapest seats. I'm going to grab those seats, not think much of it. And next thing I know, I've like opened up Pandora's box, and now I am surrounded by people who are just getting after it and making this beer snake. And it's like, hey, like I could have been sitting over there with like the family, like the little kids, and not have to worry about being in this environment that's just supporting, that drinking culture that's kind of putting me at risk. And you're right. Like, then what ends up happening? Like internally, things start to happen. You know what I mean? Like there's like those changes. I start to feel it
Yeah,
physically inside me. My mind starts to play this game where it's like, you know what? Like that looks awesome. like, why are you just sitting here?
yeah,
You need to be doing like, and so it's like, hey, if I know that about myself, why would I choose to put myself into a situation knowing that that's exactly how this is going to play out? I'm not going to engage in some kind of magical thinking in the idea that, you know what, this time it's going to be different. My mind isn't going to be my mind. It's going to act a lot different. It's going to be
yeah,
somebody else's mind that's going to be very direct and very, intentional, saying, no, 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 you don't do that. Wag your finger, smack you upside the back of the head, and make a different choice. No, that's not going to happen. That's not who I am. So, why, if you know yourself, put yourself in scenarios that really put put you in danger of losing the things that you've worked for. And I think you think about what you gain in those moments. Yeah, okay, so I check out, like I get to kind of escape being me, but when I come back, there's going to be hell to pay, and I don't want to have to pay that ticket that I'm going to have to kind of cash at the end of the day.
yeah. Oh yeah, because going back to Memorial Day weekend, I mean, the shame and the guilt, and I
Yeah.
can't believe I did this. I mean, I heard it all, from all the people that reached out on Messenger and Facebook. But they put themselves in vulnerable situations. You
Right.
know, we always talk about that. We talked about that at Christmas time. With ugly sweater parties and stuff like that. Everything needs to be recovery focused. Everything needs to be sobriety focused. And the thing is you might get talked into going to some things. And I'm actually thinking about a barbecue that I was invited to probably a couple of years ago, maybe about a year and a half. It might have. No, it was 2 years ago. It was 2 years ago, and I was roughly 3 years sober. Okay, and I didn't like being around that. And I was told, no, this is a different type of barbecue. There's going to be kids there, and it's more of like it's just more of like like a pool party type thing. I get there, adults are throwing Jello shots. Jello shots are like
Right.
friggin' the patio splattering on my leg. People are already friggin' drunk at 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I lasted about an hour, and I said, I got to get the hell out of here. I
Yeah.
mean, I couldn't take it. And again, it wasn't like I was triggered to drink, or do a Jello shot or anything like that. It's just the behavior of the people, especially with all these minor children running around too.
Right.
It just disgusted me. I mean,
Yeah.
it absolutely disgusted me. And I guess that's where your growth occurs in sobriety and recovery too.
Mm-hmm.
Because years ago I probably would be part of that crowd and I would have loved that party, right? Now I want nothing
Definitely.
to do with it. It's just it's that whole pendulum shift, the whole lifestyle shift. Um, so yeah, I mean, you just have to be cognizant of your surroundings, have an exit strategy, pick and choose your battles, and the biggest thing, specifically during these summer months is you can't get complacent with your recovery. You know, if you're going to meetings and certain days of the week, that needs to be consistent. Now is not the time, okay, to be falling off those meetings, okay, when you know there's going to probably be more vulnerable situations over these next few months than probably any other time during the year, outside of maybe the holiday season.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's the thing because it's like you look at what is going on this time. It's all those gatherings and invitations, and what do people tend to do, right? They try to. I feel like everybody, because I don't think I'm unique. I think a lot of people will also do this, right? They'll try to like mind read what other people are going to think. I get this invitation to this party. I've been going for years. Now I'm sober. Now I'm not doing that. I'm not living that lifestyle I was once living where we're playing flippy cup and like there's people like small children watching, like the Jello shot party you're talking about over there.
Yeah.
And it's just like I'm gonna say, like, I'm not participating in this, or I'm not gonna go to this party. My mind's going to do like these like mental gymnastics of like trying to mind read what everybody else is thinking and how are they going to respond and what are they going to think, right? Like all of a sudden, like it just the focus goes off of ourselves
Yeah.
into everybody else, and then you lose sight of yourself and what's in your own personal best interest because you're trying to placate other people who don't have the investment into you like you have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
You'll get the old, what, do you think you're too good for us now?
yes.
And it's like, uh, no. You know, I mean, if you, first of all, I don't owe you an explanation. But second of all, if it's somebody that I was close to, okay, you know, I would simply have a conversation of, you know, the destruction that it caused in my past. You personally know, you know my past, okay? You know how hard I work to get sober and get into recovery. You know how hard I'm working on a daily basis, getting up early, going to the gym, watching my diet, helping facilitate, so forth, okay? Just please be respectful. I don't want to go backwards, okay?
Mhm.
I just don't want to be in that environment, okay? I cannot go backwards. It's just a life that I don't want to go back to, you
Right.
know? So, I mean, I'll get into those conversations with certain individuals, okay, that I might have had a closer relationship to, or maybe even a close relationship still to this day, but you do not technically owe them an explanation. But that's
Right.
what's going through their mind is, what do you think you're
Definitely.
good for us now?
Right. And I agree fully with you because I've talked with so many people about this where it's like, hey, you don't have to explain it to them. All you got to say is just like, no. And then they're going to try and bait you, right? Because it's not so much like, oh, I genuinely want to support you in what you're doing. It's, I'm just curious. I want to know the information.
Yeah,
Share it with me, right?
yeah,
And I think that's why when you're kind of making choices to live a different way of living that's supporting you, one of the most important things to do in all these gatherings and all these situations that you might find yourself in is really having to assert and reassert what your own personal boundaries are. Because that it can be a very big change that other people are not accustomed to seeing from you. Where
yeah.
it's like, hey, I'm used to kind of pleasing everybody, doing what they want. Just kind of, I'm along for the ride. Whatever, cool, yeah, let's go with it. Versus now, it's like, hey, like that doesn't work for me, and I don't want to go do that. So I'm going to choose not to.
It's like early on in recovery, like I didn't want to answer any questions, so I still drink it, okay, but water with meal.
Yep.
Okay, I got in the habit of putting, the water flavoring, the little black
Yeah.
cherry flavoring in your water. Okay, it looks like a friggin' drink. Okay, and nobody would ask me questions. Aren't you drinking? Why aren't you drinking? All this stuff. Now, honestly, I just enjoy it. I mean, I just,
It's
I like
tasty.
flavor. I don't like drinking straight water, so I drink it all the time. Now, if somebody asks me if I don't drink, I tell them, well, I feel comfortable enough telling the truth. No, I don't
Right.
drink. And I'm an alcoholic in recovery and a drug addict in recovery. Somebody really wants to push the issue, okay, and pry a little bit, then I'll kind of hit him between the eyes with the statement. I mean, I'll just tell him straight up, no, I choose not to put poison in my body anymore.
Yeah.
And that'll make them take a step back real quick. What do you mean? Then there's an opportunity to educate if you really want to educate them. But I've become comfortable in my own skin to be able to kind of hit them back or do the verbal judo, if you will. Okay.
Hmm.
But it wasn't like that early on. It was the water with the meal. Hopefully nobody asked me any questions. And then my mind, if somebody asked me a question, what am I going to say? You
Right.
know, not anymore.
No, you're right. Because like early on, like that anxiety is high, and going into these situations and choosing to engage with these situations and these people in a different manner than you historically have, how could you not feel a little bit uncomfortable or a little bit anxious, right? Like
Yeah.
that's a natural feeling, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. And I think that's important for people to remember. Sometimes, like, is that when anxiety is coming up, that's not a bad thing. It's your mind just saying, like, "Hey, be on alert here."
Yeah.
And so sometimes it means like, hey, I got to kind of check in with me before I go to these situations. How am I visualizing myself handling being around these people again and making different choices than I have historically? And I talked with people and I've said, hey, like when you kind of visualize like this 4th of July party you've gone to for 5 years, you kind of think about what goes on here and how you see yourself behaving. What's kind of like that mental picture that kind of just like plays through your mind, right? Because
Yeah.
our mind kind of plays like these little small movies for us. And so that can really be difficult to make different choices if that's kind of what is constantly playing and replaying in our mind when we're a little bit anxious about going into the situation. And so there's like that power of visualization, right? Where it's like, hey, I'm going to think about this scenario. And instead of me replaying, my my highlight reel of what I wish I would have done different in my life,
Yeah.
I'm going to now visualize myself going into this situation, being in this setting, and handling the stress and making different choices that actually support my current goals that I have in my life. And I'm going to replay in my own head how I'm asserting myself, how I'm setting boundaries, and also knowing that I don't have to explain it to anybody. I don't know that to anybody. All I have to do is just visualize myself managing these stressors in a different way than I historically have because my mind couldn't create that because I haven't done that before.
Yeah.
But if I'm intentional about it, now I've got like this, this rote script, this experience that I can reference in my mind that can say, oh yeah, that that would be helpful in these moments. Let me turn back to that.
And you get further along in your recovery and your sobriety, and people that now everybody knows, okay,
Mm-hmm.
that you're sober, and they see you drinking your water with your meal or your water with your water flavoring, and see that you haven't faltered, and your body's responding, and they're seeing the morph of your physical body and just the way you carry yourself and so forth. You got a different type of confidence and aura, if you will. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What will happen, and it happens all the time, is there'll be one or two people that are at that event, and they'll actually kind of, usually it's a little bit later on. Usually they're feeling pretty good. They're a little intrigued, and they'll get you in the corner like, okay, tell me the secret. How did you do it?
Yeah.
Because it's on a lot of people's minds. They wish that they can actually be sober and avoid of alcohol or substances or whatever it might be. They just don't know how to do it. And then there's your opportunity, to, maybe explain a little bit and maybe help get somebody on the right path. Happens all the time. Happened at a corporate holiday party this year. Somebody saw me drinking water flavoring. Gentleman divulged to me that he was actually in a 30-day treatment program, and then he was sober for about 6 months and he relapsed, over the holidays.
Yeah.
Okay. And he was going to get back on it, after the holidays were over. But he kind of cornered me. I mean, it happens all the time. It's
Right.
just kind of weird, because at first people are like, "Oh, you think you're better than us," but then they see, I guess, maybe your life changed for the positive if they really know you and they really follow you. Okay, and now it's like all of a sudden they kind of want what you have. Not necessarily saying that they're a full blown alcoholic or that they struggle, but there's a lot of people out there that drink, they're casual drinkers that really don't want to do that, but they do that and they really want to find a way to get that out of their life.
Definitely. And especially when they kind of open that door and say, hey, I want to know about this because a lot of people do, especially with the kind of the changing landscape in our society where, there's that big sober movement, the big push for all these changes to occur. And so sometimes people don't know where to turn to get answers or get information. And I think those opportunities, even if somebody's like, "Hey, I've had a few, and now I'm going to go talk to Mark," like it still creates the opportunity for like that seed to be planted
Yeah.
to kind of allow it to grow, so that they can make a different choice when they're ready to make that decision.
Or you'll get the old, okay, well, you don't drink, and you're off the opiates. So what do you do? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? What do I do?
Yeah,
Wait, something. What do what you THC gummies? No, nothing. I'm like, nothing. I'm like, I'm 5 years mind altering substance free.
right.
And then the next question is how? It happens all the time.
Right.
And again, it's not like I, try to set out and, be a preacher and, you know, shake my fist at every single person there. Sometimes I wish I could when I see the way they're acting, okay, but I
Yeah.
don't, But people will be drawn to you because you have something that they want. Is really what it comes down to. And I know we're getting short on time, and I know we kind of focused on like the whole alcohol and substance side and not relapse or whatever. But we do got July 4th coming around the corner, and I just want to touch base on this, and I want you to make a couple
Yep.
comments on this as well, because we do work with a lot of veterans. I know a lot of veterans, okay, and we do work with a lot of individuals that have the PTSD from fighting in the Middle East and so forth. And I know that the 4th of July coming up here in a few days is a very sensitive holiday for them with the loud noises, with the firecrackers and the M80s and the fireworks displays and so forth. And, that could be triggering. They can get flashbacks to, the battles they were fighting in the Middle East. You being a therapist, I'm going to turn the corner. I'm going to ask you a question now. Any suggestions for those individuals, knowing that the 4th of July is around the corner and they struggle with that, what they could be doing, to put themselves in a really good, manageable position with this holiday around the corner?
Yeah, no, it's a great point, especially given this time of year with all the chaos that people like to ensue with all their fireworks and
Yeah,
um, the shows that they personally like to put on. It's really, I think, a big part of that too is just also, educating the loved ones who are their support people, who are going to be there in those moments to help, ground them in that moment, bring them back. And because when those sounds, right, and those loud bangs that are so reminiscent of experiences that they've had can kind of flash people back and make them feel like they are back in that very moment,
yep,
away from the current moment where they're at, where it's like, hey, where I'm at currently is safe. And right now I feel like I'm not here. So that's where like that really, hey, how do I kind of bring myself back? What is my plan to help ground and recognize that the environment I currently am in, even though there are reminders that are associated with horrific events that I've been through, I am not, that is not happening right here. That is not happening right now. I may feel as if it is, and I'm in this moment. So, what do I need to do for myself ahead of time? Are there objects? Are there people I need to make sure I'm in contact with? What is my own plan to ensure that I'm able to stay safe when I feel overwhelmed or I feel emotionally flooded and triggered by what's happening in this environment?
go. Because that could be triggering. I mean, I know a lot of people, that fought very hard,
Yeah,
for their sobriety, veterans, and they have struggles, with the PTSD and the loud noises and so forth. And I've seen specifically, like with the 4th of July and the fireworks displays and that, them get into a potential relapse situation because they
yeah,
were proactive. Okay, they were being reactive. Okay, and they didn't do some of the things that you said. So I want to make sure we get that out there a couple of days prior
totally.
to July because they need to have a plan in place.
Yeah, I mean, because especially when like your amygdala gets triggered and you feel like it's fight or flight and it's life or death. I mean, that you're just trying to feel safe and trying to figure out how do I feel safe in these moments. And I think that's the part where it's like knowing ahead of time what I need to do that's going to help promote that feeling of safety if I am flooded with these feelings and these emotions that feel
No,
really strong and really intense. Um, no, so I'm glad you brought that up, Mark. I think that's a great point. I think it's especially this time of year, it's incredibly important to just be cognizant of and be aware of that. Hey, even if you're in the community, and you want to go around blowing up
On the
mailboxes, hey, maybe right now isn't that time to do it. Like, be cognizant of the impact that your choices are having on others.
Yeah.
So, no,
Okay.
great conversation today, Mark. I think these are some great points that you brought up and you were able to kind of lead us into. So appreciate the insight and the wisdom here, and just kind of being a little bit proactive and really taking that personal inventory about what are those situations tied with this time of year that could really pose a risk to all the hard work and changes that people put in their life to really make sure they're highlighting and supporting their recovery as well as their emotional well-being. So any closing thoughts, Mark, before we get out of here?
Nope. Everybody have a safe and happy 4th of July. And I guess we'll see you in the middle of July, which is hard to believe already.
Yeah, I know. All right. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in today and joining us here. These episodes drop on the 15th and the 30th of every month. So feel free to tune in and listen to them then. If there's any topics that you'd like Mark and I to kind of spend some time diving in and exploring, feel free to reach out to us. As always, thank you all for joining us, and we will catch you on the next episode. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today on Healing Minds, Stories of Resiliency and Recovery. If you're on the journey to find guidance and insights, subscribe now wherever you find your podcasts. Healing Minds, Stories of Resiliency and Recovery is an educational resource, not a substitute for medical or therapeutic advice. The opinions expressed by the hosts and their guests are not necessarily those of NAMI DuPage. Go to namidupage.org/podcast for links to past episodes, show notes, and to submit a question or topic ideas for a future episode. Until next time, be well.